I've made Butterick 6456 3 times now, and every time I made it, I simplified it a little bit. Let me show you how I made this pattern into a very easy sew. I'm Caroline, welcome to Sweet Pea Sewing. Now I've had Butterick 6456 in my stash for quite a while, but I was looking at the Style Arc patterns, which I love, and I noticed this one, the Style Arc Effie blouse. And I thought, oh, I really like that, but it looks so familiar. Why does it look so familiar? So I went into Stash Hub. And I found this view of Butterick 6456. To me, very similar. The Style Arc Effie blouses got a little bit of it, they've got more of a ruffle here than a gather, and the ruffle sleeve here is a bit longer. And Style Arc instructions aren't too great, and I'm still a newish sewer, about 9 months. So I thought, well, I'll give this one a try. And actually, at the same time, I realized I also had New Look 6434, which is also very similar. The only difference that I can see is the neck. New Look 6434 has more of a boat neck, but I love this pattern. I haven't made it yet, but I really like the different views on it. With the Butterick one, here's the line drawings. It's got like a tulip parting at the front, not on this view, but on these two views. And this big one here has these statement sleeves. I might make those in the future, but right now I wanted to make view A. And so that's what I did. I started with a thrifted, I'd say it's poly cotton. It definitely has polyester in it. And it didn't turn out too bad, although I forgot to cut the sleeves at elbow length. So as you'll see in this picture, they're too long. So I had to redo that. But the fitting wasn't great. It was too much over my shoulders. And it just, I could tell it wasn't a great fit. And I had used size 20, which has a 42 bust. Now also, if I can avoid facings, I will avoid them. I put binding in around the neck, and I know binding isn't the lovely flat look, but I'm okay with that. This is just store-bought binding. I actually thought it turned out quite well. But other than that, I pretty much followed the pattern. Oh, pardon me, one other item that I changed. So I put binding on, which made it a lot easier. And it calls for 2 pieces down the back. And I thought, can I get that over my head without putting in the little keyhole and button at the back? And yeah, I did. I ended up cutting this on the fold just like the front, but I had a problem with it being too large. And you're probably realizing why it was a bit too large, but I didn't really get to that fix until blouse number 3, but you'll see. So those are the first 2 changes that I made. The binding, and I cut the back on the fold. But overall, it's not bad. It's I will wear it casually. It definitely can have a lot more fit. Let's move on to version 2. Before I forget, I want to tell you what I'm wearing today. This is Style Art's Azalea top, made out of a beautiful linen rayon that I also got from Fabricland here in Canada. And I just love this top, and I've made a couple of dresses out of it as well. It has these beautiful statement sleeves, and it's just a really nice make. For version 2, I use this beautiful rayon that I got from Fabricland a while ago. And this is the fabric to use for this pattern. It just showcases these beautiful gathered sleeves so much more than the poly cotton toile did. Now, I sized down to an 18. I still did the binding around the neck with the store-bought bias binding, and I did cut it on the fold instead of doing the 2 pieces in the neck binding. So definitely sizing down to 18 was good, but it still was a little bit big across the shoulders. And oh, one other thing I wanted to show you is I did a narrow hem cheat. And I learned this actually from a Seamworks video where you just serge the end and then turn it over. And it really helps to make a nice little finish on the hem and on the sleeves, a little narrow hem. So this one turned out well, but I still wouldn't say it was necessarily a 10 out of 10. Let me show you the final version. And here's version 3 with all of my little tricks applied. Now this is also made out of a beautiful rayon, and rayon, especially in a solid color, can be difficult to work with, and it wrinkles like crazy. When you have a patterned rayon, your wrinkles and maybe mistakes and errors don't show up so much, but I am very pleased with it overall. So let me tell you from the top all the changes that I made from the pattern. Number 1 is the bias binding around the neck instead of the facing. For the other 2, I used store-bought bias binding, but for this one, I made my own on my Simplicity bias binding machine, which I love. And so that gave it a nice finish around the neck. And then number 2 is I cut it on the fold rather than cutting it as 2 pieces and having the keyhole with the little button. But I realized when I was making this one that if I'm cutting it on the fold and not in 2 pieces, I'm going to have extra fabric in the back because of the seam allowance that would be there for the 2 pieces. So I removed 5/8 on each side, and that made the back narrower, and that became the perfect fit. And then again, I did the sheet with the serging around the edges, flipping it over and sewing it to make the narrow hem on the sleeves and the edge. So number 1, bias binding around the neck instead of the facing. Number 2, cutting it on the fold, but make sure you remove that 5/8 on either side to make the back narrower when you put it, before you put it on the fold. That's number 3. And then number 4 was the cheat for the hems. But overall, I think it's a great fit. It's a very simple, easy sew now for me, and I'll be repeating this blouse a lot. Depending on the fabric that you use, although honestly I would recommend a flowy fabric, always a flowy fabric for this blouse. You can really make it, you know, understated or very dressed up depending on what you'd like, but it's very comfortable. I hope you enjoyed this video today, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you've made Butterick 6456 or New Look 6434 or Style Art Effie blouse. I'd like to know what your thoughts were on it, how complicated the Effie one is, or how complicated you might have found either of these, what fabrics you used. Please let me know in the comments, and I'd love it if you would like and subscribe. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.